Well, good evening, everyone. You're very, very welcome to Belfast Bible College tonight, here for our live session on the MA in Theology. We're delighted that you're joining with us. My name is Ian Bingham. I'm the Engagement Officer here in Belfast Bible College. And hopefully you're in for a treat tonight, because we've got quite the lineup for you tonight in this session for MA in Theology. So on the sofa at the minute, we have Dr. Charlie Hajiev. Charlie is our program leader for the MA course. He's going to be telling us a little bit about the course in a minute or two. So Charlie, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. We also have Dr. Peter McDowell. He's going to bring us a bit of a sample lecture later on. And we have a bit of a treat in store as well. Johnny Matthews is a good friend of mine, and I'm going to grill Johnny in a minute or two, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what it's like from a student's perspective to do the course. He's on a second year in the MA course, so we'll interview Johnny in a minute. So that's who we have tonight, but we're actually really keen to know who's watching with us tonight. So what we'd love you to do, if you're able, on the YouTube comments, we would love you to put in a little comment to tell us where you're watching from. And I have the screen in front of me here, and it'll jump up on the screen, and I'll maybe be able to share where we're watching tonight. So that would be great if you could do it. So the plan is, in a minute, I'm going to hand over to Charlie, and Charlie's going to take us through really what the course is all about and the details of the course. Then Johnny will interview Johnny and see what he has to say. And then Peter will give us a bit of a sample lecture. And after that, I'll come back on and we'll do tie up some of the loose ends and maybe ask some of the questions. So that's really the plan. That's really the plan for what we're doing tonight. Here for our live session. So let's get going. Charlie, I'm going to hand over to you. And you tell us a little bit about this course, please, Charlie. What is the MA in Theology and what does it all mean?
Thank you very much, Ian. Yes, it's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for giving us the time from your evening. So let me explain what the course is under 4 headings. I'll say a few words about the philosophy of the course, and then I'll talk more practically about the structure and the delivery, and then we'll give you some information about the application process as well. But let's begin more generally with the philosophy and the main ideas behind the course. We wanted to do a course which reflects who we are and plays to our strengths, and which is also geared towards people who are involved in ministry or who have what sometimes is called secular jobs, but want to serve the Lord in their place of work or in their churches. And so those two things, our identity and our strengths, plus the goals of the course, reflect really the ideas and the philosophy behind the course. What you see on the screen there is the purpose statement of the college, and that purpose statement highlights the fact that we are very much committed to the idea of integration. We emphasize the integration of spiritual, academic, and practical education because we believe that it is important to be robust academically and intellectually, to engage with the ideas of our day and age, and with scripture and with theology in a good way. But it is very important to do that with spiritual depth and commitment, and also to have a practical goal in mind. And so therefore the course tries to integrate on one hand biblical and theological studies with commitment to ministry and mission, and that idea of integration is really central to the course as a whole, and also to the individual modules that are part of it. So a few words about the structure. There are, maybe if we can have the next slide. So there are 2 compulsory modules that everyone has to do. And then students choose 4 optional modules out of several that are on offer, and then they finish with a dissertation. And the degree is fairly flexible because we realize that people's circumstances change. So Obviously, if you want to do and you're able to do the whole degree, that's brilliant. Sometimes people find it's helpful to exit at some point and then maybe come back. So if you do 3 modules, you can exit with a certificate. If you do 6 modules, you can exit with a postgraduate diploma, and then if you do the dissertation, you have the full degree. So the two compulsory modules focus on these 2 poles that I mentioned before: the biblical and theological studies on one hand, and emphasis on mission and ministry on the other. So reading the Bible in the 21st century deals with questions of hermeneutics: how do we engage responsibly with Scripture, and how do we read it well in the contemporary world. And the contemporary trends in church and mission looks at trends in missiology and ecclesiology. And these 2 modules form the basis of everything that goes on later on. And then there are a variety of optional modules. You can have a look at them on the website, and you see a list of them on PowerPoint as well. And each one of them aims to integrate this theological and practical aspect within its approach. And they vary in terms of content depending on people's preferences and interests and needs. The delivery of the course also reflects our desire to have this as something that's accessible for people who are in work or in ministry alongside their studies. And so we have a blended learning approach to this degree. This means in practice that students come to the college twice a year for a week. So there are 2 weeks in total during the year, 1 week in August and 1 in February. And these teaching weeks are an opportunity for us to engage physically, face-to-face together. And then after and before those weeks, there are a number of online activities. There are recorded lectures, online seminars, online tasks. So it allows people to do those alongside other commitments at work and family. This is how the degree works in practice. If you do it in 2 years, you'll do 4 modules in the first year, 2 from August to January, and 2 more from February to July. And then in the second year again, you do the other 2 optional modules, and in the final semester you do the dissertation. So that's how most people do the degree. However, there is the option to do it at a slower pace over 3 years, and if you for example, find that sometimes maybe the commitments at work or in church or other things that go on require that you divert some time from study, then you can slow down and you can do it over 3 years. And that means you do 3 modules per year, and then you do the dissertation in the final year. And the assessment is, we've tried to create a variety of assessments, recognizing the fact that people, different people have different skills and strengths, and so the assessment tries to reflect those. So there are obviously essays, but there are also presentations and case studies and reflective journals and written reports. So the degree tries to assess your learning in a variety of different ways. So now I am really glad that we have one of our students here, and I'm going to pass the mic, figuratively speaking, back to Ian, and he's going to interview Johnny and allow us to get a bit of an insight into what it is to do this from a student's perspective.
Thank you, Charlie. Certainly, I think there's an awful lot to take in tonight, and hopefully, if you're sitting at home considering this course tonight, will give you a lot to mull over in your head, and certainly a lot to think about. But it's one thing for us as staff to kind of tell you about the course. but I think the best people to tell you about the course are actually those who are actually on the course. And so I've got my good friend beside me, Johnny Matthews. Johnny, you're very welcome tonight. So I'm going to grill Johnny for a minute or two here and see what he has to say about the course. So Johnny, thanks for coming in tonight. We know you're a busy man, but we appreciate you taking the time to come and speak to us. Johnny, maybe the best thing to do would be just to tell everyone at home just a wee bit of information about yourself, who you are, and kind of what you do, and what brought you here to the Bible College.
Yeah, so I'm Johnny Matthews. I'm from Craigavon. I live there with my wife Laura, our daughter Betty, who's 15 months-ish, 16 months maybe,
Wow.
and then another one on the way in June.
Wow.
So life is busy. I work for Craigavon Youth for Christ. I also help lead a church called Car Craigavon, just on the outskirts of Craigavon. And I suppose what brought me to Belfast Bible College, good question. I grew up, so I left school with no qualifications, and became a Christian at about 19, 20, and tried to repeat my GCSEs and kept failing them, so I quit because it was costing too much money. So then I thought I'd give up on education, but then when I done an internship in my church for 2 years, there was a youth work course that was, you could sort of get in through the back door. It was like a degree, so I got in through scripting through the back door. And I suppose that introduction to studying just sort of gave me a bit of a hunger for it, if I can say that.
Fire in your belly kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of first time in my life I enjoyed reading a book.
Amazing.
You know, so it kind of gave me a hunger for it. And I think when I became a Christian, I didn't really understand, I didn't really know much about the Bible and what Christians were meant to do. And I remember thinking, well, I'll just start reading my Bible and see what happens. And so when I was about 19, 20, I started to read the Bible, and there was always a want to know more, from what I was reading with face value. And so I done a youth work degree with applied theology, so it's pretty much a Christian youth work degree with a tiny wee bit of theology. So when I graduated from that, I thought I'd never study again because it was quite stressful. But then a family member was like, you ever think about doing a master's? And I kind of laughed, but I had thought about doing a master's. I'd read about this course, and I was like, I would love to do something like this, but wasn't in a position to pay for it financially. So then my family member was like, well, if I help cover the fees, will you do it? So I was like, well, it's now or never, because if someone offers to pay for your fees, why not? So
what you're telling me is you left school with no GCSEs, but you're sitting here, almost finished your master's. Is that right?
Yeah.
What an incredible story, and testament to God, Johnny, and how God's moved in your life. But I suppose there's so many questions I could ask you, from that, but we'll stick to what we've planned here. So why, you kind of covered this, I suppose, why did you choose to study the MA course?
So aside from the family member obviously paying my fees, I just, when the opportunity came up, I suppose what you said before, I was like, I didn't really want to do it for myself, and essentially, but it was I work with young people who underachieve and who are marginalised and on the margins in Craigavon, and so I felt like doing a course like this could be a testimony for them that just because they fail now doesn't mean they're going to fail for the rest of their life. And so I was written off from education before I could talk. So I think that when this opportunity came up, I was like, well, why not? And I was really scared to do it, and I thought I would fail, but I remember thinking the same thing with the first degree. So it was like, if I really applied myself, then I'm sure I could do it. And then when I was reading up on the course and watching videos about it, and I was like, the support structure seems really sound here, and I think that if I was to do it, I would be sort of looked after. I know it's an independent learning course, but there is a good support structure, and I think that was what really pushed me over the line, because I assumed wrongly that you would just be left to your own device, and that kind of scared me a bit.
There's a good setup with the course.
Really good setup, yeah, really good setup.
You meet with lectors and that kind of thing. Is that what you're
yep, and everyone is just an email away, and there's never a stupid question, and I just really appreciate something like that, especially for someone who doesn't. I still feel like an outsider in a sense because of I think it's too good to be true sometimes. But then I suppose on the other side of that, as I said, like the context I work and live in, like I work where I live, and I do church where I live and ministry where I live, and Craigavon's my home, and it's such a diverse community, mostly nationalist. You know, a lot of people I work with who come to our church are involved in organised crime and LGBT, and not like it's tyrannic or anything, but it's just in terms of diversity, you've got working class, you've got lower class, you've got people living in poverty, people who aren't, and the older I get, the more questions I have about my own theology, and I just felt like my theology was being tested so much. I really need to understand where I stood in certain situations, and how I can make the Bible and theology applicable to people who are selling drugs and people who are taking drugs. You know what I mean?
Johnny,
you know, so I get like that, so I can make it in a sense understandable for anybody and everybody.
Brilliant. I'll maybe pick up on that theme in another question in a minute or two, but I suppose you've said yourself, you're a husband, you're a dad, a new dad to be soon, a church planter, and a youth YFC coordinator. So I think it's fair to say that you've got your hands full. So how did you find all the studying, while juggling all the other commitments that you have in your life?
Yeah, I think a good wife. I think Laura's amazing.
Hopefully she's watching this.
I hope so too. But yeah, I think it's just like, so for me, like you just find out how you work and how you function. So I'm a morning person.
Yeah.
I'm useless in the evening. Like I'm a youth worker and I'll do programs in the evening, but it's just really hanging at me on people. There's not much brain power behind it, because like I suppose youth work is a gift for me, so it's quite natural. So I'm a morning person, so through the week I'm up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning.
Wow.
I go to bed before 10, like, I'm lucky if I'm in bed past 10. And, because I know I'm so productive in the morning, all my best writing's done at that time.
Okay, yeah.
And so knowing that I'm a morning person, then I block out mornings and like days, not really past after 3, like, but where I'm like, right, I'm gonna do work.
That's your study time.
And I put it in my calendar.
Brilliant. Yeah.
But before all that, I make sure everything's prioritised. So like you said about being a dad and a husband, like all that stuff is in my calendar.
Yeah.
So if you look at my calendar, I've got date night with Laura.
Brilliant.
I've got Thursday is Betty's day, because Laura's in work and I get Betty all day to myself, and then so everything, even family meals and everything is in my calendar. And then when I study, I make sure it's in a different colour. Yeah. And it's like something I can't miss. So say if it was a Monday night, for example, someone's like, "Do you want to do something on Monday night?" I goes, "No, I can't. I'm busy," because I know I'm studying.
Who'd have thought Johnny Matthews 10 years ago would have a calendar?
Yeah, my dad laughs because he says I replaced my beer fridge with a bookcase.
Very good.
So yeah, like understanding how you work and prioritising, and even not just leaving it, like people in my first degree were so guilty of leaving at the last minute because I was so scared of failing. I used to leave myself a month free for each assignment, and I think I just carried that discipline. So
good.
Like the last 2 weeks, no matter what way you structure your week, it's going to be stressful. Yeah. Like just accept that. Yeah. Like you're going to lose your social life, close to deadlines, and that you have to accept that. But it's temporary, But I'm always reading something. Like I've read the question, I'm looking at the sources. I'm like, okay, so then whenever I've got a free hour or something, I'm always reading something. Good. Good. Or listening to it.
I might come back to that again later on in another question. But I suppose one of the things I want to talk about now, Johnny, is you're in your second year of this course, all right? So you've covered an awful lot of content. Charlie told us there a little while ago what the course content is all about. What would you say are the main lessons that you're taking away? I mean, I know it's maybe a hard question for a question, but there's an awful lot. But what are the main things that you're kind of taking away with you from this Masters?
I think, like, because you could be here all day of what I feel like I've learned, from each module. But I think to make it more broad, I suppose, and like, I think in terms of theology in itself, like understanding a deeper sense of theology. So I had my theology, and because I was always reading, and I was like, whenever I was in my first degree, I was always reading, trying to like, and I would notice things and I like delving deeper. But I think with this course, it deconstructed me.
good.
And I felt that was important.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone needs to get deconstructed with theology at some point, and like time and time again. And I used to be scared of that. I used to be scared of people challenging my theology because I thought where I stood was right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one big learning curve for this course is I realised that I have no idea, you know.
Good. Good.
And studying theology isn't just a 2-year course.
Yeah.
It's the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Which excites me a bit. But you have to, I think, when you're in a class full of people from different backgrounds, different theologies, different churches, you have to really humble yourself, which is hard. To be like, I could be wrong in this certain issue. I could be wrong. My theology could be off here, and I suppose my biggest learning curve is that you learn from everybody, regardless of their walk from life or walk of life.
So it's not just about the lector at the front, it's about the collective as a class together. You feel it's good to learn from each other. And I like that idea of deconstructing, deconstructing something in order to construct something else.
Because some of my beliefs haven't changed really, but I think for me it was being deconstructed in a way and in a safe environment where you can then reconstruct something constructive. Very good. You get what I mean?
I get you.
And like within all that, it helps me then to, okay, this is, and you know, when you have to be critical. You have to be critical in yourself and your writing, and you have to be critical thinking. I think it's one thing I've learned the most is how to not be like in a negative sense, but in a positive sense, like understanding the blind spots of my own argument and my own theology, and actually instead of, you know, trying to use theology as a weapon against to prove something wrong. Now I see it as something to find common ground with people. You know, people who don't believe or think the same way I do. I sort of like look at my theology as I'm going to find a common ground with them, so we can move forward together. So I think in all that, that's the main learning curve. I could tell you of different subjects and like different like ways of reading the Bible that I've learned. But again, we'll be here all day. But I think my overarching learning is that.
Good. That critical awareness and critical analysis is a major part of the course, and I'm delighted you've said that. So one last question then is, so you're coming to the end of the course, the 2 years. How are you, Johnny, going to take what you've learned over these last 2 years, right, and take it into Youth for Christ, and take it into your environment in your workplace and your church community, the church plant that you have? How do you take what you've learned here and apply that then into the context where you find yourself?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question on the way up. Like, I see whenever you have the right tools to study the Bible in a really like effective way, like it just like when you take these tools and everything you learn in this course, and you reread the Gospels, it's like reading it for the first time again. And so for me, it gives me like a, you know, when you read it in that new light, like it gives you a greater desire to share it. You know, not like a, you know, stand at the street corner, but just sitting with the people like you're working with one-to-one, and just feeling like, here, where do you hear this? Where do you hear this first story? Like, where do you hear this good news? And it just sort of helped me simplify it a bit better, even though theology is complicated, and it is, but I feel like what I will bring into my workplace is actually the simplicity of it. You know, again, I said before, like I work with some of the most marginalised people in my community, and I'm friends with some of the most marginalised people in my community, and I spend loads of time with them, and so it's like taking what I've learnt and like how do I apply that to them, you know, and it's as I said before, it's like making theology accessible and applicable to people of all walks of life. And I feel like I don't want to like, you know, I don't want people just to believe what I believe. I want to equip people to like study and research it and find the answers for themselves, and seek God themselves in the scriptures with the right tools, so they can come to their own conclusions instead of trying to create like Johnny disciples, you know, trying to create, you know, trying to make disciples of Jesus.
Brilliant, Johnny. So what you're really saying is you can take what you learn in this course. I know you're involved in church planting and Youth for Christ, but what you can take in the course, you can be applicable in any kind of work sphere, you know, helping people to understand how they share Jesus and share the gospel in the context that they find themselves in. So that's brilliant. Johnny, thank you so much for joining us. Don't run away, because we might need you later on for some questions that we're going to have. But thank you for now. We really appreciate your time. As I say, you are a busy man, but thank you for sharing that. And hopefully that's really helped some of you at home tonight. considering doing the MA course. Hopefully Johnny's experience has maybe helped you to kind of figure out that this is something that you maybe want to do in the future. So you're in for a treat now, because we now have Dr. Peter McDowell, and Peter is going to share with us a bit of a sample lecture. He's going to give us a little flavour of what you might expect and you might find on the MA course. So Peter, it's over to you for a bit of a sample lecture.
Okay, no pressure then. He's described this as a treat, and it's not often that my lectures are described as a treat. So, so this is going to be a little flavour of perhaps what we might do studying some of the courses. So my field of study is mission, the study of mission. We call it missiology. And one of the big things that we're interested in when we're studying missiology is how we do mission in different contexts, how the church relates to different contexts. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a flavour of how this thinking works. So we begin with, I'm going to give you 3 contexts and we're going to explore them. First off, the book of Acts. And so quite often we do obviously want to start with Scripture. And a good place to think about mission in Scripture is obviously the book of Acts. And we want to think then, what was the context that this mission was being done in? And as we think about that, we go on and we just think about the religious environment that the early church was doing its mission in. And if you think of the Roman Empire, it was a really vibrant religious environment that the church was in. There were a multitude of different religions that you could join if you wanted to, and they were all out there competing for people to say, to join their own particular religion. And so one of the commentators, Hurtado, writes of the time that religion was such a part of everyday life that birth, death, marriage, the domestic sphere, the civil and wider public life, work, the military, socializing, entertainment, arts, music, were all imbued with religious significance and associations. So this is a religious environment that the church is going into. They're not going into a vacuum. They're going into the midst of this where there's religion everywhere. So we note that about the religious environment. And then we think about the political environment. Obviously, this is being done in the context of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire covered all of the known world as it was the empire that controlled every aspect of life. And an empire that, in a sense, well, it allowed different religions to flourish. But then you wonder, well, why did Christians run into trouble in this empire? And the basic reason was, when you're in an empire, empires want the loyalty of their citizens. And you get people coming along and saying, well, it's not Caesar who is Lord, it is Jesus who is Lord. That becomes a challenge to empire, and that's when the empire begins to react. So you've got quite a difficult political, oppressive environment in which to work. So that's mission in the book of Acts, the context. Now, obviously, we could go on a lot more about that. It leads to some questions that the early church had to think about. So the first Christians were Jewish people. And they had all of their Jewish rituals and standards, and that was part of their faith as well. But then people who aren't Jews hear the gospel. And the question, put it bluntly, is, well, are they going to have to become like us in order to become part of this faith? The big question was circumcision. And we're so used to the answer, but at the time, it was quite surprising to come to the conclusion they do not have to become like us. And so you get a Gentile church forming, what some has called an addition to the pluriformity of the church. The church was one and united, and yet had different flavours in different places. So that's the Roman Empire. My own personal experience of mission in another culture is in the country of Nepal. A religious environment. A religious environment which is again very vibrant and very live, a Hindu country with a lot of Buddhists in it as well. And Kathmandu has been described as a place where there are more temples than houses, more gods than people. So a really vibrant and alive religious environment that the church is trying to work in. So engaging in this environment, this is a country that in the 1950s there was not a single Christian in the country. So the church is small. They're engaging in this society as a vulnerable minority. There's less than 1% people who are Christians. And yet, in this environment, people are coming to faith. The church is an attractive alternative. So it's grown from 0 in 1954 to over 2 million people in the church. Phenomenal growth. So missionary engagement in that setting. And then we turn to the context for mission in Ireland. And what's the context that we are in? A religious environment that is very, very different. An environment of secularization. An environment where religion seems to be on the decline, although there are many options out there. So much so that when people are looking for a religious alternative, they're often not turning to the church, they're turning somewhere else. So secularization, but still a vibrant religious marketplace in which we are, do you want to put it bluntly, in competition. We're also in a context where we're transitioning from Christendom to post-Christendom, from what you might call the time in Europe where church and state were closely linked and Christianity was part of the fabric, to a change where the church is moving from the centre to the margins, where we're moving from being a majority to the minority, from being settlers to sojourners, from a position of being a privilege to plurality, from being able to control society to having to just witness, from just maintaining our churches to having to be involved in mission, from being an institution to being a movement. Culture's changing around us, and our position in society is changing. That's the context that we are in. So we look back to the book of Acts. Does that context fit our context? What are the similarities? Well, minority status, religious competition. But there's an important difference, I would argue, between the context in Acts and our context. The church in Acts was growing, was, in a sense, on the rise within society. The church in Western Europe is in decline. There are pockets of difference, but overall there's no doubt church is in decline. There's no vibrancy in a sense. Perhaps there's a sense of desperation. So does Acts feel right? Or is there another alternative in the Bible to go to? And I'm going to leave you with a question. The book of Acts, or the Old Testament, the experience of exile, of people having to move from Jerusalem and from their own country where the faith and life were all mixed together, to suddenly being in a strange place that is more difficult and challenging. And maybe if we turn to that part of Scripture, we might find some resources for our mission. Now, all I've done tonight, Ian has raised some questions there.
Absolutely.
I think come along to the course, join the course, and we'll explore it further.
Superb, Peter. Thank you very much. Our pastor always says that, he says, don't write down what I say, write down what I make you think. And I think that's the whole premise behind this, in that it's not necessarily about what is said, but what actually it makes you think. And as Johnny talked about earlier on, the critical analysis and deconstructing some things, and even in that short snippet, the kind of questions that could come out of that in class, you would thrash out together. Oh, yeah. And that's kind of, again, where Johnny was testifying that a lot of the learning happens. So we thank you for the input there, and thank you for whetting our appetites really for what the course is all about. Right, okay, so we've heard from Charlie. We've heard a bit about the course and the setup of the course. We've heard from Johnny and his experience and testimony of what it's like on the course, and I've given you you got a little sample of the course there and some of the teaching. Let me just give you some of the logistics and some of the fine details. So application, how do you actually apply? Maybe you're sitting there tonight and you're watching this and you're thinking, right, I feel that God has really been nudging me in this direction. Maybe you have, maybe this is a bit of a confirmation sign for you. Maybe you have sensed God leading you down this pathway to do the Masters in Theology. What next? What do you do next? Well, there is an application process that has to happen, okay? And that application process is an online process. So what you would do is, I guess we would always say, first of all, we would really, really encourage you to think about it first and pray it through. Really pray through this course. If you are sensing God moving in your life, really pray it through and chat to some trusted people, maybe your minister, your pastor, your some leader in church, or somebody you trust, and that they might be able to give you some form of confirmation. But if you feel that this is for you, then what do you do? Well, the first thing you do is you go to our website, www.belfastbiblecollege.com, and you navigate your way to the postgraduate page, and you'll find there, read the information, all the information there tells you about the course, and there's a little blue button at the bottom. It says apply now. And so if you hit that button, that'll take you through the application process. Now, really, we do advise setting aside maybe about an hour, 3/4 an hour to an hour to do this application form. There is a bit to it, so make yourself a wee cup of tea or a wee coffee and sit down and really think about it. And I suppose you can, if you want to come back to save it and come back to it, you can. But really, there's the normal things that you'll be expected in an application form, your name, your address, all that kind of stuff. But then it does go into a little bit more detail. Okay, we want to think about things like your ministry experience. Okay, we want to think about things like your spiritual journey. So you'll be asked to kind of clarify some of those things and what you kind of understand about the Bible College here and the ethos of the college and what's kind of drawing you towards this MA course. So we would ask you just to take some time to think that through and to consider your answers. Once you've done that and you're happy with your answers, hit the apply now button and that will come to us. The next stage in the process then, I should say as well, is that we do require 2 references, okay? And this is important for us just to get a bit of an idea of who you are and who's applying to our course. So one reference will be a character reference. So that really is somebody who knows you really, really well. But for this master's course, we do also want a church leader. So your second reference really needs to be a church leader or someone that knows your spiritual journey really, really well, okay, and can comment on that. So that's the references. They will then come to us, and after that, we'll be in contact. We call it an interview, but really and truly, it's more like a conversation. We want to have a conversation with you. It can be with Charlie or Peter or some of the lecturers, really just to have a conversation about, to clarify what it is you're feeling and if this course is a right fit for you and us as a college as well. So that really is the application process. So if tonight you feel that you've heard something really special and you think, do you know what, I think I want to apply for this course. I think God has called me to apply for that course. I would really encourage you tonight to consider applying for the course. Next thing we do then, we'll talk about entrance requirements. So what do you need to get onto this course? Well, the entrance requirements really are some sort of university degree, an undergraduate degree, okay? It doesn't necessarily need to be in theology, okay? But we do ask for a degree at 2-1 classification. That's because, as you've heard already tonight, there is quite a high standard in terms of the academic ability that is required in this course. And so we do ask for a 2-1, not necessarily, as say, in theology. However, as you've heard tonight from Johnny, you might be in a situation like Johnny where you didn't have any kind of academic qualifications. Okay, and maybe it doesn't apply to you. Maybe you have been in ministry for many years. Maybe you left school many years ago and didn't go down the university pathway. Well, there is an option for you. Okay, we do take into account your experience of ministry, and so we would ask you to be in contact with us and we would go through a bit of a journey with you and have a bit of a chat with you, and the experience does count towards the application process. Okay, so that's kind of how it all happens. What we're going to do now is we're going to move into just some frequently asked questions. Okay, we normally get some questions asked around the course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite perhaps Johnny back onto the sofa, and I have Charlie beside me, and I'm hoping that between the three of us we can answer some of these questions. So let's put up some frequently asked questions. The first question really that is usually asked at this point is, how much does it cost? Okay, I'll answer this. I'll take this one, gentlemen. The cost really at this point is uncertain. Okay, it's still to be decided. We still have to go through our management team and so on to get the final cost. But last year's, based on last year's cost, it's in and around £6,000. Okay, and then there will be an enrolment fee of £530 as well. So that will give you a bit of a guidance and a bit of an idea. It'll not be too far away. But when we get the final figure from the management team, that will be on the website. Now, I should say about that cost, it doesn't have to be all paid at the one go. You can pay it off in instalments, and that figure of £6,000 does cover the 2 years of study. So it's not £6,000 per year, it's just over £6,000 for the 2 years. So I think that's important to know. So hopefully that covers the first question. Second question then, what does a typical timetable look like? Okay, Charlie, maybe you take this one. What does a typical timetable look like for the MA course?
Well, it partly depends on the speed you are taking the course with. If you do the 2 years, then what will happen is you will come in August and during typically the last week of August, and you will be here for the whole week, 5 days, 9 to 5 for lectures. So there'll be about 2 days per module. You'll have intensive lectures and seminars and group work. And then from September until the beginning of January is the time when you study, prepare for the assignments, and during that period of time there are various online activities, and these differ from module to module, and so you'll be engaging with your tutors or with your fellow students. The online activities could be online seminars, they could be tasks, they could sometimes be submit a piece of work and receive a bit of feedback. There could be discussions and so on. And these are designed to help you kind of navigate the time between you coming to the college and the submission of the assignments. So we don't want to kind of leave you, as Johnny said earlier, completely on your own and to manage with the task. We want to support you and help you and give you a bit of guidance. On the other hand, we recognize that people have different schedules and commitments. So we try and have these various tasks fairly flexible so that people can work around them. And work them in light of their commitment. So you'll submit your assignments in January, and then you will have January to February another online slot with online lectures. You will come in February for the second teaching week, and the same process will be repeated. Yeah.
Thank you. And Johnny, I've asked you to come up because that's from our side in terms of how it's set up. From your side in terms of learning, did you have to go to your employer, or did you have to go and say, listen, I need to book this time off for these intensive weeks, or how does that work from your side?
Again, I know everyone's situation is different, but last year are very accommodating. They out of the 2 teaching weeks, they give me. So I had to take a week of holidays, but then the other week was they just included working hours.
Amazing, yeah.
So they were very accommodating, so I can't, I was lucky.
Brilliant.
Put it that way, yeah.
So it's good to have an understanding boss is really what you're saying.
Yeah, big
good.
time.
Okay, so let's go back to the questions then, see what questions we have next. What is the application deadline for studying in September 2022? Again, we have the date is TBC, still to be confirmed, but it's in and around the 3rd week in July. is really what we're saying is the final date for application form. So if you could aim towards that date, again, keep away on the website, and we will put up as soon as we know the date, it's finalised, we will put that date up. But aim for the 3rd week in July, and that will be in and around that date. So next question then, will the intensive weeks be on campus or will they be online? Charlie, are they on campus or is it an option where you can watch from home, or how does that work?
The intensive weeks are always face-to-face on campus. Obviously, with coronavirus, things sometimes change. But it's fair to say that we had only once the situation, and this was last February, when we were in lockdown and we couldn't have students physically present here. So that particular week took place online, but that's the exception rather than the rule. So we are fully anticipating that the February week will be face-to-face, and certainly in August as well.
Brilliant. And again, John, I've asked you up here because you mentioned this when you're speaking. It's important to have the classes in person because it's not just about learning from the lecturer, it's about learning from everybody together and the conversations that you get in those couple of weeks. Would that be a fair point? Yeah.
Yeah, big time. I think like when it's face to face, it's not just the learning; it's also like a small community.
Yeah.
But online, you sort of lose that aspect. You lose a cup of coffee together, you lose a cup of tea together, having lunch together. Which then, when you're comfortable with someone, you're comfortable to learn with them, aren't you? So, yeah.
So I like that word community. That's really a big part of what we're about here in Bible College is building a community, and you as a class become a community then together in those kind of weeks. So that's fantastic. Right, last question then. What's the last question? Let me see. Oh yes, what is the level of difficulty of the MA course? Okay. Johnny, I'm going to go with you first, and then I'll come to Charlie. What did you think? What do you think? Obviously, you've got your degree, and now you're working towards the master's. So, what do you think is the level of difficulty here?
It's difficult. Yeah, I think when it comes not to downplay any degrees, but you could get away with throwing in quotes. Yeah. The bulk of your word count, or throwing in, especially in a youth work and applied theology, you just throw in a Bible verse, anywhere, and you got a mark. But I think with everything you put in, you really have to you do have to think it through. Does this actually make sense? Yeah. You have to be critical of critical thinking. I think that was the thing I struggled with the most at the start. Was constantly trying to be critical. Not obviously, as I said before, in a negative way, but just trying to find the blind spots of what you believe and what the point you're trying to prove. I think all that was I found that very, very difficult. But at the same time, when you start to get the more you do it, the more you become used to it. And I think now, it probably takes me half the time to do an assignment in year 2 than it did in year 1 because you're, so it seems very overwhelming at the start, but once you get into the grit of it, and get into a certain flow, you're
okay.
It's far more manageable.
So Charlie, tell us where the difficulty level is supposed to be.
Oh, I think, as far as I'm concerned, it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Well, no, this is obviously, it's an academic course at the postgraduate level, so there are certain standards that we maintain, and we are very passionate about making this academically robust program, which is intellectually challenging and stimulating. So that is very clearly an important part of the course and what we do. On the other hand, we don't want this to be either abstract, irrelevant and theoretical, or so difficult that people disengage with it. And so I think it is stimulating enough without being overwhelming. That's what we are kind of aiming for. And as Johnny said, what we recognize that in 2 years you cannot really learn all of theology or even a tiny part of it. And so what we aim for is really, I loved when you're talking about deconstructing and reconstructing. What we aim to do is give people the tools to engage with Scripture and with life and with God and with their own experience in a constructive way that helps them to be faithful in the context in which they find themselves. And once those tools are in place, I think you find that it gets easier.
Brilliant, Charlie, thank you. Time has unfortunately gone, folks. I see a question there from Simon about international study and distance learning. We'll maybe reply to you, Simon, on that one, but unfortunately time has gone. So we want to say a huge thank you if you've joined us tonight, or you're watching maybe later on the recording. We want to say a huge thank you, and we really do hope that tonight that God has been speaking. We hope that you have really been sensing the nudge that God has been encouraging you. And we do hope and we do pray that this is something that will give your full consideration, and there's something that maybe God will lead you in. I love what Charlie just said about the context to which you find yourself in. You know, this course is, we say it's written by leaders for leaders, and certainly for those of you who are involved in church leadership or in ministry of some sort, or maybe you've been asked to come on to eldership, this course is a brilliant fit for you. But it's not just for you. For those of you who are feeling a real nudge and a real urge to want to know what Johnny was saying earlier on about how to share the gospel in the context to which you're in, if you want to go deeper with God and bring Him into that environment, then we really feel we want to have a conversation with you at the very least. So what we want you to do is, if you're unsure, or if you've got questions, or you want to have a chat, please get in contact. Contact us here at the college. I'm Ian, the engagement officer, so phone up and ask for me, or you can, of course, email in info@belfastbiblecollege.com, and we'll pick up that email and we'll get a bit of a conversation with you. But thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We appreciate your time. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Johnny. And thank you to Peter for giving up your time as well. Thank you, folks. All the very best. Good night and God bless. Thank you now.